One of the great blessings in Stugotz's life of no one holding him accountable for previous things said.
Yep.
Is I do believe, what was that sound? Like what you were just sort of...
I was leaning back and then I leaned in, and that's what happens when you go from leaning back to leaning in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you have,
everyone knows.
On this Lamar Jackson story, you have taken every possible position. And now your position is that he's an idiot at business, correct?
Not an idiot, just someone who clearly needs some help navigating through a very important part of his life. That's it.
Okay, but you said clearly needed help. When you also said it was brilliant for him not to have an agent. Back when the first 5 games of the season, he was out playing the contract. You realize Patrick Mahomes
was playing great.
Patrick Mahomes is already underpaid. Wait out this market.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel Jones making $40 million a year isn't even going to be something special very soon. So he is betting on himself. He is playing a dangerous game.
A very dangerous game.
But he's an MVP, and everyone needs that position.
Dan, he was an MVP, I don't know, 4 seasons ago. He's been hurt the last 2 years. He turned down between 160 and 180. $160 to $180 million guaranteed before the season. According to who? According to Lamar Jackson. That's a lot of money, guaranteed money to turn down when you play that style of football.
It is a lot of money to turn down, and it's $50 million less than what Deshaun Watson got. And Deshaun Watson, who's not the MVP of the league.
But Lamar Jackson should not feel this burden or some sort of need to get slightly more than Deshaun Watson. That was a dumb deal.
Why not? Why not?
Why should he? Why is that his obligation?
That was precedent setting.
I know, but the Browns did it against every other owner's will. None of the teams were happy that the Cleveland Browns did it.
It's not Lamar Jackson's job to care about that.
It's not Lamar Jackson's job to get more than Deshaun Watson.
But why wouldn't he think he deserves it?
I feel like that would be his agent's job if he had an agent, and he doesn't. So
and
it's
he doesn't
his job.
have an agent.
It is his job.
So Stugotz, I'm with you in that. Dan is very anti-agent. But what agents do, it's not even about the money. It's when the Ravens say, we're not giving you that, the agent is working a million back channels to figure out what the alternative landing spots are back last year. Not now, but this should have been happening back August, September of last year. That's where the agent comes in. But the part, Stugotz, where you're like, oh, what does it matter? It's not his obligation to make more than Deshaun Watson. It's absolutely his obligation because that is what the market says. Hey, a top-tier quarterback is worth this much.
That's what the Browns said.
No, that's what the market.
That's what the Browns said.
The market is the market, right? The Browns did that because they were bidding against other teams for this dude, and that's where they set the bar at. So if you're Lamar Jackson, at that point, the market has spoken. It doesn't matter who. There's an old saying in the NBA, I'm sure it applies in the NFL. It only takes one asshole. But once that asshole has spoken, guess what? Now we all move. I'll tell you a great story about this. Channing Frye was a free agent for us. He had just opted out. We started with 4 years, $16 million for him, $4 million a year. It was a good thing. It was double what he was making before. He liked it there. He's from Phoenix. He had the best year of his career. And his agent was saying, we think we can get, $30 million. And we're like, no, he's not getting $30 million. And so we kept going, and then we eventually got up to $20 million with our option on the last year.
Right.
And his agent, who was Rob Pelinka, by the way, says to us, Channing and his wife want to sleep on it. And so we said, okay, all right, we'll give him the night. The next morning, Darko Milicic signed a full mid-level, and Drew Gooden, all these dudes who weren't as good as Channing, signed the deal that Channing was looking for, and at that moment, it was a done deal. It doesn't matter that they were bad deals, and every single one of those contracts was regretted by those teams. All that mattered to Channing Frye was worse players are signing better deals than me. Lamar Jackson sitting there right now, he's saying a worse player who's got a massive radioactive red flag has a better deal than me.
A worse person. You take the off-the-field stuff out of the equation, most people would have said, hey, I'd take Deshaun Watson over Lamar
How many
Jackson.
MVPs does Deshaun Watson have? How many MVPs does he have? Let's play the Stugotz game.
I'm not sure about
No,
that. Stugotz.
plus, I disagree.
You are not
Stugotz
looking at
MVP
Lamar.
plus minus.
You're
How
not-
many MVPs does he have?
He has one. You're not looking.
Who no? Deshaun Watson?
No, Lamar Jackson
I'm
has
asking
one.
how
Deshaun
much
has
is-
none.
Okay,
He has
there you
none.
go.
That doesn't mean he's the better quarterback,
Yes, it
Lamar.
does.
He was a better quarterback for a year. For 1 year.
And Deshaun Watson was never the better quarterback then.
Deshaun Watson, I think most people would have told you a couple of years ago, hey, I take Deshaun Watson. Coming off that playoff game, that good season they had, I take Deshaun Watson over Lamar Jackson. You're not looking at Lamar Jackson's last 2 years.
Just to be
in
clear.
which he's missed 10 games, and he was awful last year.
How many games has Deshaun Watson missed?
He's had ACL concerns too.
He missed a full season with an ACL injury.
Stugotz, are you making the argument? I just want to be clear on what your argument is today.
And he had an agent.
Yeah, well, let me just make sure that this is the argument. So, if he had an agent, he should sign. If he had you as his agent, he should sign for $50 million less guaranteed than the Deshaun Watson got.
And 2080 Stugotz.
He should have taken
$160 to $180 million guaranteed for anyone is a lot of money. That's a deal I probably would have taken.
But it's $50 million less than Deshaun Watson, who not only I would argue is not as good, I would also argue, and this is irrefutable, comes with a whole lot more shit than Lamar Jackson.
Of course he does.
And so you're asking Lamar Jackson, what you're asking the agent to do is come in $50 million under value. And the thing that I don't understand that people always do is, why do you assume that this is still Lamar Jackson walking into the front office in his uniform as opposed to having a management team that's not an agent that's taking 4%? Like, why do you assume that Lamar Jackson is negotiating with Carolina's front office about how to get to Carolina?
With his helmet under his arm.
Like, I don't get this. He's an economy. You think that a person who's worth hundreds of millions of dollars is walking around and he's got no help? All he's got is the last say. And Lamar Jackson wants his money, Stugotz.
And it drives the media people crazy who get all of their information from the top agents and brokers in sports because they can't hear that perspective on it and then put that out into the world. Like, that's the information economy that a lot of people on radio and on TV run off of. And it drives them crazy that they don't know what's going on.
But let me add to this, Stugotz, because you've got your star player who, at this moment as we speak, he's the Ravens. You can tell me anybody else you want to name. This is the Ravens, face of your franchise, your future. The Ravens are screwing with something. An MVP in close to his prime at that position is not something that you fool around with that person's feelings. Generally speaking,
right.
we caretake that person. We cater to that person. We make sure that person's feelings aren't hurt if they are that responsible for everything that we're doing.
Between 160 and 180, guaranteed, is not making a person feel important.
He doesn't. It can be perceived as below market value.
Because one team went rogue and acted like idiots.
But and honestly, to Stugotz's point, I think the Ravens and their owner, Steve Bisciotti, might be being sent out there as, hey, you need to lead the charge on bringing this
Correct.
back.
And this is the part that I now want to talk about, Stugotz, because it was unusual yesterday. Go ahead and cite me all the precedent we have on what I'm about to say. A whole bunch of teams who need quarterbacks immediately run into the fray, giving their information, guys, not interested in an MVP at quarterback. Not interested.
26 years old.
Not interested. 4 or 5 teams, not interested immediately. Darlington, everybody, not interested. Don't want the MVP of the league. A league that improperly evaluated him, didn't know he was a quarterback, didn't believe in him as a quarterback, and now that it's time to pay him, says, no, we're not paying him. And I find all of that riveting for a number of different reasons, not the least of which is Lamar Jackson's not going to be bossed around by an agent. He wants his guaranteed money. And now what the Ravens have said, and this part's cold. We don't know if you're worth that much, but let's see if you're worth that much to another team, plus a couple of first-round picks. Now you don't have to just be worth that much.
Well, they can match it or take the first
no,
round
but now
picks.
what you're doing with the offer is
Yeah, you're saying let the rest of the NFL go set the market. We don't believe the contract you're asking from us is out there from anyone. And so far, they're right.
But what you're saying to your prized employee is not only are you not worth as much as Deshaun Watson, go ahead, we're going to call your bluff. Go out and find the team that says you are worth that much and is going to give us the 2 first-round picks so that we decide, not that we value you, because they might still keep him after that, Stugotz.
Well, they can match it.
No, but what I'm saying, not that we value you, we insist on someone else telling telling us how much we should value you. If you're Lamar Jackson's skill set, that's insulting.
It is insulting. It's also business. Like, the Ravens aren't sure what to do. And I'm not sure I blame the Ravens for not being sure what to do with a quarterback who plays that kind of style in a conference that is littered with great quarterbacks. They might be saying to themselves, hey, good quarterback draft. Let's reset the quarterback clock, get a rookie in here, and see if we can win that way. When you're in a conference, Dan, with Josh Allen, with potentially Aaron Rodgers, with maybe, Tom Brady, with other guys like Joe Burrow, with guys like Justin Herbert,
Patrick Mahomes.
Patrick Mahomes. You're in that conference. They might be thinking to themselves, you know what? Lamar is good. Lamar is great. He's not enough to get through that gauntlet. So we're going to let him go.
Lamar has already expressed profound disrespect in a lengthy Instagram post. I wonder if his relationship with the Ravens is repairable at this point. I really doubt that it is. I think he's looking to get out. I think he's more liable to take less from another team than he is from the Ravens at this point.
It's a weird way to treat a quarterback MVP for your team, Stugotz. It doesn't have a whole lot of historical precedent for a guy of this value to be enduring this in public from his franchise.
Dan, he was the MVP in 2019. Like, I'm not saying he's not a great quarterback. He's a great quarterback. But he was offered 160 to 180 million guaranteed before the season. Like, had he taken that, he still would have gotten injured this year, still would have missed his 6 or 7 games, still would have played awfully after week 3. Like, the Ravens kind of look good right now in their decision-making.
Daniel Jones just got that 160.
I know.
You think Daniel Jones and Lamar Jackson are
No, I think Lamar's. I was surprised
the
to see
guarantee
Daniel
number
Jones
is more
get
important
that.
there.
Right.
The guarantee
he
number.
got 80-something guaranteed.
Yeah, Daniel
right.
Jones. But
they were offering him double that guaranteed.
But Stu, you made the point that maybe the Ravens have decided that Lamar Jackson isn't good enough. I mean, you're looking for a unicorn then. I mean, I would make that argument about Daniel Jones. The Giants are going nowhere with Daniel Jones.
But how do you guys not see what they did from a team standpoint? They decided that they're not certain he's worth that amount of money.
I'm amazed at how principled it is.
So go show us you're worth that amount of money.
But that you
think you can get it? Go get it.
You do that to Daniel Jones. Not even the Giants were willing to do that. The Giants weren't willing to go to Daniel Jones. Go and find me your $160 million offer from somewhere else. The Ravens are doing that with Lamar Jackson. For as long as I've been watching football, I mean, yeah, they won a Super Bowl with Joe Flacco, but Joe Flacco was never like the elite MVP of the league kind of player. For as long as I've been watching football, the Ravens have been an offense mired in the muck. And yet they find Lamar Jackson, a league MVP, one of the most electrifying players. You would bend over, to Dan's point, you would bend over backwards
in
for this guy.
2020, you would have.
Stugotz,
You still would.
He's 26.
Guys, 2 years ago, he threw 16 touchdowns, 13 interceptions.
Ran for 1,000 yards.
He had 3 good games to start last season. Look at the numbers. Look at the game logs after those 3 games.
This is where your argument falls apart. Give me the game logs over that time for Deshaun Watson, who got that money. You'll have a whole lot of games not played for anybody and calamity all around him, and he got the guaranteed money.
You're missing the point, okay? The Browns, okay? They went rogue. They did something that no one else would have done, I don't think. Offer that amount of guaranteed money.
You say that, but Deshaun had a lot of competitors. That's how that got that high, is because a lot of people wanted Deshaun
Miami.
Watson.
Yes.
You guys keep pointing to the MVP season. Yes, he was an MVP. The year after, he threw 16 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, got injured, missed 5 games. The Ravens still offered him $170 million.
What was Deshaun Watson? What was Deshaun Watson during that year? What
was sitting that
What
year.
was he doing?
He was recovering from a torn ACL.
I don't know if this is Stugotz being Stugotz or if he's really holding on, but to me, the money, the guarantee, the options, all that stuff is set dressing for the actual point. Sounds like Stugotz is saying he's good, but he's not that good. That's what it sounds like you're saying.
It is what I'm saying.
Deshaun actually threw 33 touchdowns and 7 interceptions
that year. Yes.
Well, that was in 20. In 21, he didn't play.
You're
it's
asking
funny
the year
what you
after
guys are doing.
Lamar's
You're holding up the years that
MVP.
you want to hold up to bolster your argument, and I'm doing the same thing with Lamar.
Oh, we also just saw-
in 2020, he was the best quarterback in the NFL, coming off the MVP.
We also just watched him.
What has he done since?
They win 2/3 of their games when he starts. They make the playoffs every time that he starts. You value winning. His career record as a quarterback is 45-16.
How many playoff
Stugotz
games?
through 13 games last year, they were like 9 points from being undefeated.
Dan,
that
he
team.
was bad though.
It's the
I'm
most
telling you, he was
anti-Stugotz.
not good.
It's the most anti-Stugotz argument ever. Like every single thing that you hold dear, winning, MVPs, like you're like, no, none of that matters.
I'm looking at stats.
The other dude, yeah.
There's guys in the AFC who are just better, and a lot of them. Like, there's a lot of quarterbacks I'd rather have in the AFC. I mean, if I'm Lamar, I go to the NFC. I'd be the best quarterback in the NFC right now.
Put Lamar Jackson's MVP trophies in the box. Put Deshaun Watson's MVP trophies in the box. -1. Back to you, Stu.
Thank you, Juju. Before we
Well done, Juju.